My name's Anthony, and I'm here on the Breaking Bread podcast with my co-host Sal the Voice.
How you doing?
And today is our guest. It's your boy Mike.
What's going on?
Woohoo!
Hey, Anthony, where'd you get this podcasting stuff from?
It fell off the back of a truck.
What's like the most unexpected place that food influencing has brought you so far?
Great question.
This hotel that I went to 15 years ago in Puerto Rico. So 2 or 3 X's ago, I went to Puerto Rico and
What?
went to this hotel on the water. And it was an amazing time. Like, that's not where we stayed. That's like where we went to party. And it always stuck in my brain as like an amazing place. And then I went on this group trip, like culinary backed, like a chef curated the whole thing. So you got to taste the difference from like James Beard to side of the road kind of shit. And the second hotel we stayed at was actually that same hotel. So like walking in, I got like fucking deja vu, like no tomorrow. But it was just like real kind of full circle, because who could have planned that shit? Like who could have orchestrated that 15-year gap?
Completely by chance.
Totally by chance.
Wow.
Yeah.
Food influencing, like I feel like you were the OG. Like you were one of the first. It was Mo and you and like a couple other people. So like to start the actual trend.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to be honest, like it kind of happened. Food wasn't the first thing that I tried. Like there was a bunch of other things, and this iteration has been since like October 2019. But I had been creating for probably 4 or 5 years before that and a bunch of other variations. And when I started this more TikTok vertical video-esque thing, food wasn't the first thing. But once it started, it took off. And it's crazy because like back before this, when I was in like the previous version of myself where I created like leadership type content, at that point I was running a brokerage team of like 10 agents. So I would take the lessons I was teaching my agents and turn it into content.
Wow.
And I had a full-time videographer following me around, creating vlog-style content because, that was what the vibe was at that second. And we did an episode at Fortunato's learning how to make cannolis. And it did like 350 views on YouTube. So like nothing, essentially. Went back a couple years later with TikTok, and that same thing did like 300,000 views.
So you don't have a culinary background or anything?
Not at all. I have like a fat kid background. Like my, like I often joke that like I'm born to the only Italian mother that doesn't cook. So like I grew up going out to eat like 6 nights a week.
I know plenty of Italian mothers who don't want to cook.
Yeah. So my experience is just being a lover of food. So it's it started in, all right, well let's create content of places we're already going. Like I got to eat anyway. Right, so I'm going to show you the places that I know because having been here my whole life, there's not many of us. Like, there's not many born and raised New Yorkers. And then it's just taken off from there. And it's expanded into family content. My son is now in a bunch of it. My wife runs the back end of the business. And we travel. So I can't complain. Life is fucking amazing.
And I followed him before I even knew you.
I know, yeah, no. So that's why, like, I knew of him from Mike Biagio and whatnot. But it was just really looking back on it and seeing where everyone is now and like the trajectory of what business, like social media, could bring you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like really crazy. Like, I always joke around to Sal about this. One of the ongoing themes of this podcast is like everyone here is a creative. Like there's some sort of a creative medium in every single way, in every single guest. Telling my dad, hey Dad, I'm gonna quit my job and do TikToks, like it didn't go over really well. But you're how old?
I'm 43.
I was gonna say you're like way like ahead of your time. Like you've been doing this. It seems like before it was popular to actually do it.
Yeah. So I mean, I've been creating for almost 9 years now. full time, it's been a little bit over 2, and I would say probably 3.5 is when we started making money. So it was like 5 years of putting in work.
Yeah, work.
Make nothing, just for the love of what it was and trying different variations. At first, when I started, so before I did this, I was a real estate broker. So when I started, I created real estate content because nobody did at that point. Nobody created almost anything. So, and they kept that information so close to the chest. So I taught myself how to edit. I went out and, put out videos every day on every network and, the very Gary V-esque method. And after about a year, I realized people only gave a shit if they do real estate as a profession or they're actively involved in a real estate transaction, like you're buying a house or renting an apartment, with the exception being like real estate porn. Like this is what $6 million in Brooklyn looks like, right? So pivoted to the leadership motivational content because that's the shit I was already doing and teaching my team. Then hired a full-time, and then I got sick of editing myself, so I hired somebody to do it, follow me, do that whole thing, and then I just got sick of social because Instagram felt like everybody was living their best fake life. This is like 2019. Facebook is like where our parents would go to complain
About everything.
And TikTok was still kids dancing at that point.
Yeah.
So it wasn't anything to play with, and I just took a month off, and I started a TikTok account, and the first video I posted went viral. And it didn't change anything. Like, it got me into the algorithm. It got me a few thousand followers. It made other things possible. And, like, I went overnight and was like, people were knocking on my door. But it opened the door, right? And then over time, there was a period where I would just create on TikTok. And, like, my Instagram would be totally different or, not at all. And then I started transitioning to taking the stuff and putting it everywhere because I've realized that your follower base on each network is a different person. Mm-hmm. We all have an inclination to consume vertical video in one specific place. It's not we don't have different accounts, but we consume it in one place. So the person that watches on TikTok is different than the person that watches on Instagram, which is different than the person that watches on YouTube Shorts, which is different than the kid that may watch on Snapchat Spotlight, which is different than the grandma that may watch on Facebook Reels, which is different than the businessman that may watch on LinkedIn, right? So as long as you're playing where people are paying attention, like we don't watch TV anymore, we watch people. So we're all essentially production companies at this point, and it's what we create to the world. And if you look at TV stations, they didn't have one kind of show. They have a whole variety. We're going to have a talk show. We're going to have a game show. We're going to have news. We're going to have scripted drama. We're going to have scripted comedy, right? Like, and then if it doesn't work, they take it down and throw another piece of spaghetti at the wall. So it's the same with us as creatives. I don't know. That's just what I think.
No, that sounds pretty accurate. I mean, it's kind of fun to talk about like the social media thing with like another person because like sometimes I feel like when you're in your own like head and world, like you start to assume things or like have like an educated guess. But like what would you say is the future of the apps? So like that's like a popular question that I ask people when they come on the pod. Like I know people say TikTok is on its way out. They've been saying that for like the longest time. Some people think Snapchat is like the next wave, which I doubt, but what's your opinion on that?
I think the app is irrelevant. I think it's going to continue to change. I think what keeps attention is going to continue to change as our attention span continues to get shorter and shorter. It's going to require different things in order to keep the viewer engaged. I think if you look at Instagram and you look at Snapchat, they're very similar things. They're really just messaging platforms. So that's like the phone book, right? Whereas Instagram may be the phone book for our generation, Snapchat is the phone book for the younger generation. Yeah. Is there other content distribution that goes on those platforms? Absolutely, right? But if you think about like when you go to contact somebody, you're probably more inclined to DM them than you are to text them. Or you'll get a quicker response to a DM than you will to a text.
That's true.
So it's the evolution of what this is. I think as creatives, it doesn't matter. I think as long as you continue to create and throw spaghetti at the wall and try new series and try new concepts, you'll win. And it's just longevity.
Sal, and how long have we been doing the social media thing for? A little over a year.
Year and a half, yeah.
Like, so you're kind of new to like the food influencing game. Like, what's your opinion on it?
I don't know. I just love food. I really do. I love to eat. I love to feed people. I love to bring people places to eat.
Love to talk about food.
I love to talk about food. I've eaten so much in so many different places that I consider myself a good authority on what's good and decent for certain types of cuisine. Like pizza to me is a very subjective thing. Subjective or objective? What's the thing when it's like that there are rules and criteria that should be followed?
Subjective.
Right.
Subjective,
So I think pizza, like, to me, is very subjective, and I think a lot of people disagree with that. Like, well, no, it has to do with your own personal taste. Like, no. Well, there is certain criteria for a New York slice, and there's certain criteria for a grandma. There's certain criteria for Detroit style pizza, whatever it is. Like, and that I've always been about. So I just wanted to, add something to my social media. And Anthony was like, well, you like food? I said, yeah. But he said, well, how many of these people who are doing food influencing actually love food? Mm-hmm. So you love food.
I love food.
Not only do you love food, but like you said before, growing up, you ate out a lot. Yeah. You've experienced a lot of food. Mm-hmm. You qualify as an authority. You said, like, I was just a fat kid. Like, literally, I was a fat kid. Yeah. I would... Food to me was such a social thing that bringing food to my social media only made sense.
Right.
I liken it to music. That's my profession. It's not just my profession; it's my passion. I love it. I love to perform.
Yeah.
Especially the type of music that I perform. I love to perform.
Was that always the case?
Yeah. So when it comes to food, like, that's something I've always loved, period.
But that's the beauty of social media, right? Is like you can now make a living doing what you actually enjoy.
True.
Right? Like, just thinking about like what we're doing right here from a production cost standpoint is not incredibly prohibitive financially. Obviously it does cost some money to do these things, but it's not rocket science.
No, it's not like,
breaking the bank.
But there is a certain level. There is a certain something that needs to be brought to it. I think that when I'm watching your content, first of all, your narrative style and the fact that you're very, very, and your voice is it, because we don't really see you.
Right.
As much as we hear you and see what you're seeing.
It's a very specific voice.
But it's you. Your enthusiasm and your narrative style brings so much more than just, here's this great place and this great dish. One of the latest things that you posted, or one of the latest things that I've seen, was the Cartoon Network Hotel. It wasn't even a restaurant. And just, you talking about your kids running around, so your son running around and going to finding the arcade first and all that.
Yeah.
Just the excitement in your voice behind it.
Yeah.
That, I'm saying, that's not just, you're saying it's not groundbreaking.
Yeah.
But it's also, it's not very, it doesn't come natural to everyone.
No, I appreciate that. And I'm realizing that over time. I think we all have that enthusiasm in us about something, right? Like, I think you can find, and it may not be the same thing in all of us. Like, for some people, it may be knitting. For some people, it may be cats. For some people, it may be coffee, right? And I'm excited for what the next, decade will be, because people will actually be able to create shit that they're passionate about, which is ultimately better content, right? Like, it'll speak through the content because it's real to them, right? And for a long time, we only consumed what we were fed, right? Now we watch what we like because that's how the algorithm is. We don't even just watch our friends anymore, right? Because the algorithm feeds us what they know we'll like to keep us on their platform. So that's a very unique point that we've never been at before from a technological standpoint.
But your performative confidence really catches a viewer.
I appreciate
So if you land in someone's algorithm, it's very likely that they're going to start following you, or they're gonna watch the entirety of your content and be given more of it because of that performative confidence.
Yeah.
That part is what's above and beyond, what's not natural.
It's not even that. It's just you're one of the very few people that are authentic in their content, and
You actually like
You can
food.
tell when someone's fake and they're just going there, and you can tell they got paid. All these things, like your authenticity is shining through your content. Where like I actually sit down, because there's people who do 7-second clips, 30 seconds, 2 minutes. You're very melodic in the way you speak and the way you do your content. I actually sit down. Will enjoy it for that. However long, if it's 40 seconds or 2 minutes, I'm watching the video. Like, oh, this is Mike's new video. Let me watch this whole thing. Versus some influencer from California, like, all right, 30 seconds, skip.
I appreciate that. And I think what you said is true. I think for a long while, authenticity had been an incredibly undervalued asset, right? Where it was like, oh no, we want you to be prim and polished, right? And if you look at where Instagram was 5-7 years ago, right, where overexposed bokeh effect is what hit, regardless of what it was, right? You could take a picture of this elephant. If it was in the right light with the right thing, it'll hit. Whereas now it's like you actually have to have some substance in order to make it,
That's true.
especially because more and more people are creating every day. And more power to them.
I can't tell you when the last time I posted a picture on Instagram was.
Yeah. When I have brands tell me they want to post a carousel, I'm like, no.
Yeah.
I'm like, no. I'm like,
I respect that though.
yeah. I'm like, it doesn't work. Like, or I have a client that's like, oh, we want to take pictures of the food. And I'm like, listen, the only reason you might want to take a picture of the food is to use it as an Instagram story with some music or something behind that. But frankly, even that I wouldn't do.
Yeah.
But that's just, that's just evolution.
Well, there's also certain elements to the video that are what's catching people.
Right.
Like I feel like every restaurant that's ever melted cheese on top of or inside of something has had to do a cheese pull.
Right.
Because that is a visual that catches people.
And it hits every time.
100%.
There is no filter or there's nothing that can replace that it's precise kineticism in a video is that movement of melted cheese being pulled apart.
And it's universal, like across cultures.
Yes.
Right? You go to the Middle East, you see it. You go to Asia, you see it. You go to Europe, you see it. It's
look at these shawarma restaurants in London. They're starting to melt cheese and everything.
Yeah.
I'm all for it.
I don't think I've ever seen that before in my life. I've been in New York my entire life, surrounded by countless different types of cuisines. I've never seen a Middle Eastern restaurant doing a cheese pull.
Yeah.
What would you say, Mike? Are some of your favorite restaurants? Some of your favorite spots that you've been to?
Neighborhood restaurants.
Yeah, like you've been everywhere.
So
across all cultures. So
I always have trouble with the favorites question, but since it's broader, like when people are like, "Oh, what's your favorite this?" and I'm like,
No. Like
food.
just
People
just
ask me all
like
the time, and I'm like, you got to give me like a category.
Yeah. So I think
what's
about
like your go-to?
Neighborhood joint.
Like
I think back when I used to give things grades, and I kind of stopped that about a year and a half ago. So I only gave 7 perfect 10s. So I think to those because those are places that I go all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So Fortunato's, Taverna Kicladas,
that place is amazing.
So
Brooklyn
good.
Bagel,
I haven't been there.
Trin City in South Ozone Park, the Trinidadian food.
Okay.
King of Falafel and Shawarma, who has one in Astoria and then in Bayside. And there's 2 more. And I'm told, Kingston Tropical Bakery in the Bronx. They make beef patties and cocoa bread that taste as good as you would have in Jamaica.
Restaurant.
And you need to try it as cocoa bread with a beef patty. You're
I don't even know what cocoa bread is. I'm not even kidding.
So, like, cocoa bread is like potato bread's cousin.
Okay.
light, fluffy.
You like had me at potato.
Sweet.
As soon as you
Yeah.
said potato,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
had me.
yeah.
Sweet, but not like the Cuban bread.
Like think of like
Yeah.
like King's
Not the
Hol-
same-
like King's
not the same
Hawaiian
thing.
almost.
Almost. Not quite, but like what? Yeah.
Fluffy.
So,
And
so
it's in the beef pat. It's
No, so
it's-
you
But
put
no,
the
no,
beef
no.
patty inside. It's like
Oh, okay, yeah, put
yeah.
beef
It's like
patty inside.
a burger. So
Yeah.
Beef patty's the meat.
Starch and
and
starch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I didn't hear a Chinese restaurant on this list.
Yeah, I didn't hear an Italian one
There's-
either.
there's-
Oh, I heard Italian bacon.
Fortunato, bro.
Yeah.
I feel like Chinese food is like your bacon, egg, and cheese. Like it's just okay enough for you to order it and be like, yo, this is what I'm gonna eat. Like nobody really stands by like this is the greatest
True.
bacon, egg, and cheese in the world, right? Like it's just something you eat, right? It's for so long
Staple.
before pizza got fancy. It was pizza. Pizza was just like the neighborhood place, and it was okay.
There is some fancy Chinese out there, though.
I
Pearlie's.
haven't. You know.
You ever been to Pearl East?
No.
You guys want to go there after this?
You know, when you're trying to pick up like your best of this, your best of that, you know, it needs to be so far and above. And what you're saying is that Chinese food across the board
Right.
follows, you know, the curve doesn't really dip or rise enough
Yeah.
for you to find that like
No.
this is
Unless
is,
you're
the
going like
best of all
super
best.
authentic, right? Which is I don't know enough about, and it was never something I grew up on or dove in deep enough to.
Place called Fortune Wheel in Levittown.
Oh yeah.
It's in between a BJ's and a Best Buy,
I love it.
right?
Yeah.
It's this little sliver in a huge shopping center.
Cool. Fortune Town.
It's called Fortune Wheel.
Fortune Wheel.
It's in Levittown on Hempstead Turnpike, and it is the best dim sum. Like the best dim sum I've ever had off of like Mott Street.
Gotcha.
But like you said, it just follows the curve is just so narrow
Yeah.
that it's like nothing's gonna really blow you away unless it's an experience.
Right.
When it comes to Jamaican restaurants, you know, when it comes
I've
to
never
I
been.
shouldn't say Jamaican
Never-
restaurant because they're called bakeries. When it comes to Jamaican bakeries, right?
Yeah.
That is a little more like a place could either be like, you know,
Right. And,
average
or
to dog
amazing.
shit or
Yep.
oh my God.
Totally.
The way you know the food is good is if they give you more attitude and you feel like you're almost getting yelled at. You know the food's gonna be good.
Not
It's
at
like,
a
yeah,
Jamaican
give it-
bakery.
No, like if I
You don't
could
get
say-
yelled at.
yell
You don't
at-
get yelled at a Jamaican bakery.
If there's an auntie in there,
If you're getting yelled at,
like I know the food's gonna be good.
nah, if you're getting yelled at a Jamaican bakery, they're not Jamaicans in there.
I mean, I don't know.
I
don't
you
know.
want-
They're usually not very happy in the best ones.
Yeah.
I think that synopsis is quite valid, and I think the Jamaican community will co-sign on that one.
You think so?
Oh,
You go
100%.
in there and
The
you get
attitude, the attitude is
If they're out of two main things, it's gonna be good.
What I've learned, though,
When they're out of two
we
main.
know I've
things.
that. We out. We
yeah,
have that.
is the way to make them smile is to tip them,
Yeah.
because seemingly nobody tips them. So like
that's a good.
they
tip.
don't have a tip jar. Like if you know, so like if you're buying, like for me, like I go in to buy a beef patty and cocoa bread and call it $3 to $4, and I'll leave them a few bucks as a tip. All of a sudden, I see a smile that I never saw before,
Yep.
right? And they're like, "Oh, have a nice day." And it's like, listen,
But do you ever find like a lot of these places they're always out of stuff? Like I go in there, no matter what time of day, like we know I have that. We know I have that.
I just think that's endemic of a lot of businesses and lack of planning, right? And a lack of somebody actively managing what they're doing, right? And it can happen across any
Any culture. Any
culture, any genre. You know, it's just or the like, I'm going on vacation, so I have to close down the whole business. That shit don't make any fucking sense to me.
lot
Like
of
you
people do
haven't
that.
you haven't built it and you haven't built enough of trust in your employees or security that your business can run without you there.
I know a lot of people are closed for several weeks a year.
Yeah, I'm like, that's crazy to me.
We'll be back in a month.
Yeah, and listen, I'm not knocking anybody for taking a vacation and making sure that people take a vacation and being good to their staff, but like, you run a business, right? Like, you run a service business. Right? I'm glad you want to go to your home country or wherever the hell it is. But if the business can't run without you, something you're doing is not right.
Yeah.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. Being new to the business world, like 2 years in, I agree with that.
Your business
It's got to run itself.
It has to be self-sufficient without you being there.
Yeah, it's got to run itself.
We just had Carmine Gangone in here.
Okay.
And he owns Carmine's Pizzeria in Williamsburg.
Mm-hmm.
And he was saying that his father would always tell him, you're only as good as your staff, your employees.
Yeah.
You got to put people in there that you trust and this and that.
Yeah.
But that's neither here nor there. It sucks because that's always when you're craving that place the most.
Yeah.
Like every time I want Luigi's Pizza in Park Slope,
Yeah.
right? It's Monday.
Oh,
And
that's
I'm
another
like-
thing.
He's about to reopen, by the way. He's about to reopen on Mondays.
Every time I
Starting
want
next
Chick-fil-A,
week.
it's Sunday.
Yeah.
You know?
That's true about me and Chick-fil-A.
So you think like, wow, I haven't been to this place in a while.
Yeah.
You go over there, which is no easy feat in this city to go over someplace.
Yeah.
And because it could either be 20 minutes or an hour. And you get there, well, we're closed for the month. Come on. This is the month that I wanted to come to you.
Yeah.
I haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah. Listen, it is.
I wanted to come in here and spend bucks.
I think a lot of it ties to, I think a lot of it's older run businesses where you have an owner that's been in place and done things a certain way for a long period of time and are very objectionable when it comes to any sort of change.
That's where we come in, right?
Yeah, well, that's
Guys
what we
like
hope
us.
to to open their eyes to whatever it is. But I think that's generational. I think a lot of our parents' generation, that's just who they are. Like, because they grew up with Depression-era parents, or that silent generation that didn't talk about a thing and just kept their head down and worked, right? And like, this is what you do.
Suppressed emotions.
You know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it's sad. I think it's a huge opportunity, but to each his own. I can't make somebody want to grow.
Yeah.
That's on you.
What's the biggest challenge that you face when you're, employed to create content for a business and you're saying, hey, we should do this. You have a plan when you go in there. What's the biggest challenge and most frequent challenge that you face with businesses?
I would say the time it takes for them to make decisions. Right? Like okay, you're telling me you're struggling, or you're telling me there's a problem, or you're telling me there's something that needs to be addressed and fixed and so on. Okay, cool. Here's the solution, A, B, C, D. And then it's like, oh, well, let me check the food cost, and let me look at this, and let me think about this, and let me, and then 3 weeks later, you're still having the same conversation.
Yeah.
So I think it goes back to what we were saying. Like, our generation is definitely more open to trying different things and change. But, it's part of the business. It's a business like anything. It's especially when you're dealing with other people or, you have clients. It's client service.
Yeah.
Having been around restaurants so much, not just in your professional life, but in your personal life growing up, is that something like now being involved with restaurants and seeing, seeing how certain restaurant owners strategize? Is it something that kind of like frustrates you because you're like, I think I know the answer to your problem because I had so much experience in it.
Yeah, I don't try to sell to people that don't want to be sold to.
Right.
I'm not here to convince you that I'm right. You don't believe me? Okay. Go find somebody that you do. And frankly, like, we're very selective as to who we take on as clients from that perspective. Like, I won't just take on anybody just for a new client. Like, the agency side of our business is a smaller piece of the whole pie. So if you don't get it, okay, cool. You probably won't be in business, right? Unless you have amazing food. Like, that's the one variable. Amazing food always wins. Regardless of marketing, regardless of anything, amazing food wins.
True.
If you could open up a restaurant, what type of cuisine would you have? Or would you have any specific type of cuisine? And what kind of, with the experience that you've had, how much of that can you bring to a menu?
So I wouldn't open a restaurant. I would open a food hall, right? And I would pair it in lobbies of residential buildings.
Sounds like you thought about it.
I have. And I would target businesses that are looking to open location 2, 3, 4, 5, like a Chip Cookies, a Dough Donuts, a That's Deli. There's a variety of them, right?
Prince Street Pizza.
Whatever it may be, like Anthony and Sons, right?
Sure.
Because they're going to have they're going to already have the execution experience to be able to, one, draw people in from their own personal brands, and then I don't have to own any of the labor, right? So for me, it would be curating the experience for the people that live in the building.
I love that.
Yeah. And it wins because then you're providing an asset to the developer, because now however many units they have in those apartments above them now have a place to go eat in the neighborhood.
And you don't have to worry about parking. You don't have to worry about all that other stuff.
Totally.
About the location, because technically it's built in.
And
Right.
all that different stuff becomes interchangeable.
Right. Right, exactly, because it'll all change. While this one may be today, 6 months, a year from now, change the name and you put on something else.
So like what I'm hearing, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. What I'm hearing is like what a lot of these bigger businesses are like doing on a larger scale is, let's just say, prime example, Rayo's opened up in the Lowe's Hotel. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's right there. It's in the bottom of the hotel. It's kind of the same concept, no?
That's it. It's a success. Like, this goes back to what we were talking about with not wanting change, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's a lot of these businesses that are teetering on the ability to open location 2, 3, and 4. Like,
Yeah.
you have the product, you have enough of money to be able to support the expansion, or you can raise the money. That's not incredibly difficult in the world we live in.
No.
And I think it's the older parent that's running it having to like pass on responsibility to
But
the
I've
younger
seen
one.
that concept properly executed. There was a few years back, we were living in Miami, down at the Wynwood Walls, the arts district.
Okay.
They had sort of a food hall experience. It would open in the evening, and it was several different cuisines. There was pizza, there was sushi, there was, Venezuelan food. There was all different types of stuff. And it was one big prep kitchen, and then all these little, the pizzeria had a little oven, right? But all the prep was done in one big kitchen. And as time went on, they would switch out this business for another one.
Yeah.
It was plug and play.
Yeah.
And it had a little bar in the middle. It was more of a nighttime version.
Right.
But it is extremely successful. It's a great concept. It's fun, and it allows variety.
Right.
How many times, especially younger people, because you're talking about putting it in residential buildings.
Right.
You talk about the next generation of people being renters and ending up in these buildings.
Right.
How many times are these young people, are our generation, we have all our friends over, and we all want something different?
Oh, always.
So to have a variety of things available in one spot, not having to leave, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. So, and for us, the kicker is these are all existing businesses.
Yeah.
Because you go into a lot of the food halls today, and there's definitely struggle in that segment of the business. But a lot of it is because somebody's running a business for the first time. And, we know how many restaurants fail.
Yeah.
But if you're opening location 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 10, it's a lot less likely that that's going to fail, especially because you've built something at this point.
Cachet.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the food truck craze? I feel like that there's like a mobile food craze now. Like,
we
do you think
literally
that's gonna...
just got finished talking about this before you came in.
Yeah.
I think it's the first step to, it's like proof of concept,
Yeah.
right? Like if you can make it with a food truck, then your quality, your whatever it is about your product is there.
So it's a
Right.
step below, like jumping, like taking the leap and opening a restaurant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
What do you? But so what we just experienced was the opposite. Was a successful restaurant going mobile.
Well, yeah. At that point, then you can take a kitchen and cut your costs to be able to hit this market, right? Like there's a huge night market, festivals, areas. So it's brand expansion at that point.
Yeah.
I think that does happen. I think it probably more so happens less than the other way.
Right.
But I think it absolutely could work as well. I've seen places that don't have much of a kitchen, get a food truck and park it outside, so then they can have full food services.
Like breweries.
Wow.
A lot of breweries
Yeah.
will have that.
Yeah.
Breweries do that.
Big Long Island thing, though, a lot of the breweries can't serve food, so they have like 1 or 2 food trucks outside, and it's phenomenal.
Do you know who wants to do that? Arcangelo. He wants to have a food truck outside of the little cigar factory. You go in, you smoke, you do what you got to do. Because in New York, you can't eat and smoke in the same place, I think, anymore. In Florida, you can. You can eat at a cigar bar.
You can't order a drink in a cigar lounge.
That too.
Because
Aside
you
from
can't
merchants in the
serve
city.
alcohol where you serve tobacco.
Very
there are a
strange.
couple places that are grandfathered in.
Yeah.
You
Very
can't serve
strange.
food or alcohol where you serve tobacco.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a great concept for a place like that. What you're saying is that you see a lot more of people saying, "I have this concept for a restaurant. I'm going to try it on a food truck first, and if I can make it work in this, 200 square foot little,
Well, I mean, it's an investment, right? Like a food truck, you're talking 20, 25, 30 grand, right? Whereas if you're building out a restaurant, even at a minimum, even if it's something that's the same square footage of this,
500 grand.
you're talking at least a couple hundred, right? So it's like, I'll run the food truck for a year and a half, 2 years, and then I'll open a restaurant. And I've seen that happen countless times, at least here.
You want to do a food truck?
Sure. Can you recall something you've had off of a food truck that's blown your mind, like to the point where you were like, this guy needs to open a restaurant, like someone needs to step in and invest tomorrow?
So in Astoria, on Broadway and 32nd, there's been a souvlaki cart that's now turned it was a cart for years.
Is it
was
King
open-
Slovaki?
No. That's like around the corner and up the block, which tends to be more of the Greek taste.
Yeah.
Which, if you'll notice, it tends to be a little less salted and spiced, because for whatever reason that more so ties to how Greek grandmothers cook. This is a little more flavorful. It used to be like that spot you would go to at 4 o'clock in the morning, and if it wasn't Gray's Papaya, it was there.
Yes.
And they're a truck now, right? They went from like a cart to a truck, but I'm like, they should have a spot somewhere. Like, this shit is fucking delicious.
Do you know the
check
name
that
of it, or it's just?
It's
it's
just
the-
a blue.
It's the souvlaki cart.
It's right next to the
souvlaki
bank.
truck at the corner of 32nd and Broadway in
Yeah.
Astoria.
Yeah, it's been there forever. It's a block off the subway. It's right next to the bank. It sits there. But you've seen it happen like with the King of Falafel and Shawarma. Like, they started as a truck, and now they have 4 locations, right? So there's definitely opportunities where it happens. There's probably more that have started and ended up selling the truck to somebody else who opened a business, and so on and so forth.
What would you say is your next step? Like your next step in your I guess you could say your agency, in like your influencing.
So I'm trying to focus more on the building of the production company. So we have a company called Coffee Cup Productions. And I'm trying to get out of just being the personal brand.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to create product that doesn't involve me in it. And then be able to hire a full production team to be able to do whatever I want, right? To be able to create this show, and then enough to then package this 12 series and try to sell it to Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, and sell the excess capacity to bigger brands that, help pay the bills. So that's kind of what the real goal is. Where and when that happens, I mean, I'd love for it to be tomorrow. But, the universe will push me in the direction when it's ready. But, to me, content's not going anywhere.
Right.
Definitely
And,
not.
we're in an incredibly unique position right now to be doing what we're doing, because for at least the next decade, 15 years, forget about AI, our experience is essential to the continued growth of so many industries, And it's not just food. You can do this with anything. We just signed the pop star, where I'm not going to manage her, but we're going to help on a consulting standpoint in helping her to create a bunch of content for what she puts out. So it's taking what you've learned and layering it into, a different product.
That's awesome. And quite frankly, I mean, it sounds like we're carbon copies of each other.
Yeah.
That's exactly what, if I had to give my roadmap, I mean, I'd say the same thing.
Yeah.
Not the pop star route, but
Yeah,
the selling a show to Netflix and all that stuff. I mean, look, it's very possible. Social media kind of blurred the line of a celebrity now. I mean, I don't know if a true celebrity really exists, unless it's George Clooney or freaking like a Lady Gaga or something like that.
And now it's just influencers.
Yeah.
We created a cooking show where I stop people on the street and I say, hey, what's your favorite thing to make in the kitchen? And then we fast forward to their kitchen and they teach me how to make it. And we're just under 30 episodes in. We've done about 18 million views across platforms. So now it's taking that and packaging it into season 2.
That's what introduced me to your content.
Okay.
Remember I said I haven't followed you,
Yeah.
but I've seen your stuff, plenty
Yeah.
of it, because I've watched countless of those videos. I love them.
Yeah.
I love them. Well, it's not countless. I guess I've watched 30 of them. I absolutely love that. What's your favorite thing? Show me. And now you're in their kitchen.
Absolutely.
And I think that is the best. That is guaranteed some of the best, most, not just wholesome, but there's all the funny little things that people have in their kitchen.
Totally.
And the different tools they use to measure. We were talking with Carmine before about replicating his father's recipes and how it's so hard for my mother to do it for my grandmother. Because when she says a cup of this, she means the cup that she had in her kitchen.
Yeah.
And
Or a cuppa.
Yeah.
Right, which is a little more than a cup.
Yeah.
But
to see
A heaping cup.
yeah.
to see from kitchen to kitchen to kitchen, from
Yeah.
person to person, from recipe to recipe, from culture to culture, how things change.
Yeah.
I think is even more interesting than the food that's made.
Totally.
Or the conversation that happens is just watching
Yeah.
the different techniques. And I love that. That's arguably one of the most entertaining series on social media is cook for me what you like to cook in your kitchen.
So we're expanding it one step further. I have to finish editing it, but we've shot episode 1 of a new series called In Grandma's Kitchen, where we have grandmas teach us how to cook whatever it is. So grandmas from all over the world.
It's perfect.
So, that I think lends itself a little more to something that's packageable and sellable to a network than random people off the street, kind of. But we'll see.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on the show.
No, thanks for having me.